This is a regular meeting of the City Council, January 17, 2018, at 7 p.m.
Beach, January 17, 2018, approximately 7 p.m. Please join Councilman Brimer for a moment of silence and the pledge.
If everybody would please rise for a moment of silence. Thank you. If you join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we have a proclamation, and Samuel, please come up here. Got something for you. Everyone, this is Samuel Lucas Litzenberg. He's accomplished something pretty amazing. He became an Eagle Scout. Was really helping the city of Satellite Beach tremendously. He built 20 4x8 wooden planter boxes for our community garden. I'll read it, what he did, but incredible job. And this is a proclamation today. Whereas Samuel Lucas Litzenberg is a member of Boy Scout Troop 309 in Satellite Beach, Florida. And whereas Samuel has been active in scouting since joining Cub Scouts at the age of 6. And whereas Samuel has served in many leadership positions within the troop, including webmaster, assistant senior patrol leader, and outdoor ethic guide, which has given him an understanding of direction, leadership, trustworthiness, and demonstration of commitment. And whereas Samuel's Eagle Scout project was comprised of building 20 4x8 wooden planter boxes for the City of Satellite Beach Community Garden in conjunction with the Sustainability Board. And whereas the project took numerous hours and over 50 volunteers to help to complete, it will allow the community of Satellite Beach to grow produce and other plants in the community garden, which once established will sustain itself naturally in sustainable growth techniques. And whereas Samuel's years of scouting experience has taught him the morals, leadership skills, time management, discipline, patience, and preparedness, which are necessary skills to become a leader in our community. Now, therefore, I, Frank P. Catino, Mayor of the City of Satellite Beach, Brevard County, Florida, hereby recognize and commend you, Samuel Lucas Litzenberg, for achieving the rank of Eagle Scout with Troop 309 Satellite Beach.
Thank you.
For you and the proclamation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great job, and thank you for helping us.
Thank you.
Okay. At this time, I will changing the program slightly here. City manager needs a little more time, so I'm going to give the city manager the ability to give her report at this time.
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize, I just got more things to add to it. So we have the 2018 Health First Mayor's Fitness Challenge, and that will be kicking off Saturday, February 3rd with a 5K at Gleason Park at 8 a.m. We are partnering with Indian Harbor Beach, not joining teams, but partnering a lot on the activities, so we can share activities between cities. So we'll be producing that schedule soon, and we'll be putting that out to the community. But the kickoff is February 3rd at Gleason Park. Our Sustainability Board will be hosting the first annual countywide Sustainability Summit on February 8th at 6 p.m. in the City Civic Center. All the cities with sustainability boards will be actually presenting at that meeting, and we will have a keynote speaker, which will be Chris Castro, the Sustainability Director for the City of Orlando, and the Brevard Zoo will also be there to talk about their launching of the kit, so you can avoid using plastics when you go out to eat. On January 21st, 2018, our Rhythm and Motion Dance Studio will be holding their dance showcase at the DRS Gymnasium at 1 p.m., and tickets are $10 for that. That's their fundraising event for them to go to competition. I received a card from Floss Orr thanking the police department for her visits from Stop By and Say Hi program. Nick Sanzone, our environmental coordinator, has been appointed to the Keep Brevard Beautiful Board of Directors, which is very exciting. The Brevard County Board of Commissioners approved the interlocal agreement for the city CRA on January 9th, 2018, with a vote of 3-2. You can guess who the two were. But we did get that approved, so it doesn't really change our activities, but it makes the county happy, I guess. Chief Hughes has been elected as this year's president of the Space Coast Fire Chiefs Association, so that's very exciting. And legislative action days are January 30th through the 31st, 2018, later this month, and we will be sending a team up there, which includes Suzanne Sherman, our assistant city manager, Mindy Gibson, or Councilman Gibson, Dominic Montanera, and myself. But we will be extending, two of us will be extending until Thursday to meet with Senator Stubbe over short-term rentals to hopefully convince him of the dangers of those. I wanted to present to you the plan for the smoke testing. As you know, the sewer issue with the discharges into the lagoon has been an issue throughout Beachside as well as the entire Brevard County. The discharges on Beachside were by far the worst. And that's largely due to the condition of the system. The county has presented their solutions to the county commission, and part of that was shortly after Irma and Matthew. We met with the county offering to assist them in getting the other part of the system, which is the hard part. The easy part is the publicly owned part. The hard part is the privately owned part, which is the laterals going from the pipe to the house, and a lot of residents have never addressed those, and many of them, the county did some smoke testing on the beach side back in the 80s, and it showed pretty bad leaks, and significantly none have changed really since then. So we talked to them, and we're developing a program where it looks as though the county will be reimbursing our residents who qualify for if the test shows that they have a bad leak and they need a pipe replacement, that the county will share the cost of that replacement up to 75%, as long as the cost of the replacement is over $200. And that some of that funding has been approved already by the Save Our Lagoon Committee, or recommended for approval, and that will be going to the county commission as soon as we get that program put together. And then we'll be applying for other funds through the NEP and other sources. So this map shows you the smoke testing areas. They will be going from north to south. We did omit the newer development because we didn't see a pressing need for that. Our city recommended for them to come back and do that after they get Indian Harbor Beach done, because we felt it would give us a good baseline of new development compared to old, and when do those leaks start to happen, that type of thing, because there's varying stages of development out there in that area in terms of year built. So I wanted to bring you up to date on that issue. So that's moving quickly. They will be starting in the next month. So we will be sending out lots of letters to our residents, door hangers, Beachcaster articles, Facebook posts, things like that to get the word out. Do you have any questions on that?
Questions from council on this?
The other item that I had was solar will be going on City Hall eventually. We had some issues with the contract development since most solar contractors have never worked with a municipality before. There's only actually 2 other cities in the state of Florida that have done any public facilities with solar. So we had to actually create the contract ourselves, which is unusual. Usually the contractor just hands us a contract, we admit things we don't like, and so on. We actually had to draft it up ourselves. So that's been a challenge, especially with the contractor that's never had to do a bond before and things like that. So we're moving along, but we're hoping to have that contract on your agenda by the next meeting. Okay.
Thank you.
And that's it.
Questions from council members to the city manager? Courtney?
I just have a quick one. On the interlocal agreement, is that a yearly thing we have to do every year?
No. That'll be in place until the end of the CRA,
Okay.
unless either party decides to leave.
All right.
And everybody, no further questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Report. At this time, I will move on to agenda item 4, which is citizens' comments. This is for non-agenda items. Okay, non-agenda items, 3 minutes, and I will take residents who live within the boundary of the city of Satellite Beach first. This is not, unfortunately, a big discussion back from council because it's not an agenda item. We'll take your input, we'll give you as much feedback as we can, and, but that's how we handle the citizens' comments. So at this time, the mic is open for citizens' comments.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Nick Sanzone, Environmental Programs Coordinator. Just a quick adjustment on Courtney's statement. Appointed to Vice Chair of KBB South Chapter.
Great job.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Well, I'll make sure we hit her for that one. Thanks.
That's my fault.
Okay. Thank you, Nick. Great job. Floor is open. 3 minutes.
How are you guys doing? My name is Matt Fleming. I am the founder of Save the Midreach, which is the group that is specifically concerned with the material being placed on the beach as we speak. The reason I'm here, and this isn't an agenda item, is my hope is that I can present some things as an agenda item at the next meeting. And so here's the rundown. The project that we're seeing on our beach, and it is our beach here in Satellite Beach, is there's a lot of issues with it that haven't been addressed at any level of government. And so I'm here to ask the city to take a stand and sort of fill in some of the gaps of accountability and transparency and responsibility that we haven't been seeing. The project we're seeing right now and the series of projects that are scheduled to follow have several issues. Unsustainable funding, they're damaging to a natural reef that's out there that is protected and labeled as essential fish habitat by the Fish and Wildlife Service. It's something that the residents care deeply about. And we haven't seen any real environmental studies on the previous projects that can demonstrate that these aren't having a negative impact. There is growing public awareness of this. We were on Fox News 2 days ago. There's shrinking public support for these projects. That's just a fact. And Satellite Beach is a leader. This really is an opportunity to lead. Now, I had some tests done the other day, and the results came back and showed that the material is conforming with the permits. However, there is an issue with the test. The testing standard is ASTM D6913-17, and it has to do with sieve testing, which is used to determine grain size. Now, if you look that up, it says, and this is standard engineering procedures, it says this test method is not applicable for the following soils. Soils containing fibrous peat, materials that contain cementitious components such as cement, fly, ash, lime, or other stabilization admixtures, soils containing extraneous matter. Friable soils is the one that caught my attention. Typical examples are residual soils, most weathered shales, some weakly cemented soils such as hardpan, caliche, or coquina, which there definitely is in this material. That's an issue with the testing that I think should be addressed, and I would like the city to consider conducting its own testing of this material, setting as a priority the exploration of new policies for the management of the beachfront, including an economic analysis, down zoning, filing an injunction to halt the project until a better analysis of the material being placed on the beach can be done. This is just the first
Matt,
initial test result.
Thank you very much.
If
Your
you'll give me
time-
10 more
let me-
seconds,
no, let me just
I
do this, 'cause
am
don't
wrapping
think-
it up.
Okay, please, quick, and then I will tell you what we can do for you.
That's the rundown. I apologize.
No, that's okay. Here's what I'd like you to do. If
for
you would
running over my
please,
time.
you need to submit that to us in writing.
Yes,
If you
sir.
would please submit it to my city manager. She will give it to our natural resource guy. We'll answer as many questions there we can.
Is it possible to have this on the next meeting?
I will discuss it with my city manager if there's a need for that with her, if she can't answer your questions for you, and we'll discuss that, okay? But the first procedure you need to do is get us that list,
All right.
okay? And then we'll handle it. It handles within first.
I
okay?
appreciate the
Yeah, and
opportunity.
Mike, listen, Mark, Matt, thank you. And you and I have talked a lot on this. I appreciate it, and we will make an effort to get your questions answered, okay?
Yeah, I appreciate it, and thank you for letting
Thank
me
you.
get it into the
And
record.
listen, you're on a committee. I'd like to see you at those meetings, okay?
I will be there.
Thank you. Floor is still open. Citizens' comments on non-agenda items. Someone else would like to speak on the beach renourishment? Happy to say it. But I can promise you, Matt, we will answer the questions. And Courtney, do you?
I just think, for the record, we need to talk about the beach management we've done so far and what we're doing at this time, because, we can do that in email, but people are going to be watching videos of this meeting, I'm sure.
Okay.
It'll show up on somewhere. And I think it's important that the city put on record what we've done so far and what you all have done in the past history of preserving the beachfront that we have, so, which is unlike any other city on the East Coast, so.
Let me talk a little bit about how we got the land. I know, Dominic, if you'd like to speak about how you went up to Jacksonville and did that. Mark, you're on the council too. This Save the Beach has been going on in our town for quite some time. In 1981, there was a survey put out to the residents. Very interesting, because we did the survey 2 or 3 other times, and the same thing came up. Preserve the beach was one of the #1 issues. Well, in 1981, a lot of the funds were not available to obtain the property, or people weren't as friendly to sell us the property or give it to us. So it took us some time to get the process going. Around the early 90s, we started the process of partnering with some organizations, Brevard County, and different contractors and builders in the area that own property. So people got together, John Fergus, Lorraine Gott, Mayor Schechter, Mike Crotty, just to name a few of them, and 3 council members right here, Dr. Breimer, Vice Mayor Montanaro, and myself, and we started working on trying to buy up as much beach as we possibly can. Well, it's not as easy as it looks. We did really, really well for a while. We took a lot of property off the tax roll, which, when the property comes off, we need to make up that dollar to provide the services to us. So we had Pelican Beach Park, and it was part of a county-owned. We joint ventured with them, and one of our longtime residents, builder in our city, Joe DePrima, gave us the south end of what now is Pelican Beach Park, and we preserved that chunk. Mike Crotty Park, we got it from a resident of us, the Fleeces, worked together to get that piece of property. We also have a piece that's on Elwood, and Elwood's property was a little trickier. Elwood was 2 weeks away from slating to be a condo, permits pulled, and so forth. We worked very hard with the landowner, not that we wanted to see building on the beach. Our main objective was trying to obtain as much property as we possibly can on the beach. He owned that particular piece and the piece that was called the Ramada Inn piece of property. So instead of having 2 condos on the beach, He traded us the units from there to go on the site that is the Ramada, and we got approximately 4 acres on Elwood for a park. Then we worked on the piece of property that's old base housing, across from old base housing. That long chunk, we obtained it through grants that none of these pieces can ever be built on. We also got 16 accesses that are not parks, paths through property, so that the idea behind this was that you could walk to the end of your street, walk half a block either direction, and you could get to the beach in our town. And you can today. We're the only town, we own 40% of our beach. The other thing we did is we try to develop them so that they're user-friendly and they protect the environment. Sun on the Beach piece of property back there is one of those. The last 4 septic tanks in the city of Satellite Beach were on those particular properties. When we did that project, we made sure we picked up the cost of those septic tanks so we would rid the city of septic tanks, and especially septic tanks that were on the ocean right there. So everything in our city is now off septic tank and on sewers. We were the first town to do this. We had another opportunity, and this goes to say how different philosophies are from different towns. The piece of property that borders Satellite Beach and Indian Harbor Beach, okay, on the ocean, where that long yellow building is. We worked really hard to try to do a grant. When you work with other cities or organizations, you get more points for grants. We wanted to buy that piece of property with grants so there would be no building there. Well, one town's philosophy was much different than ours. They wanted the revenue that was generated from those particular condos. So we're ended with the 40% of our beach in Satellite Beach ownership. God, we wish we could buy more, but you need 2 parties. The people have got to be willing to sell. We also didn't want buildings to be rebuilt after a hurricane or destruction of a piece of a building along the ocean front. Well, we learned pretty quickly Florida is very much a property rights state. On the end of DeSoto Parkway, there was a house that the swimming pool fell in, a portion of the house fell in. We wouldn't allow a building permit there because we felt that that was unstable. The coastal hazard line was moving, and if you look down our beach during storms, sand was definitely going away. It went to court, we lost. So our hands are tied in the way of what we can do because of property rights. But from a city, we were the first ever to have baffle box, second city ever to have baffle boxes. We've done all our sea level rise studies. We're the first city to have a sustainability board. So as a city, we are very much aware of the environmental impact of things. Our job is to try to balance this the best we can with what we have. And that's the history, briefly, of how we obtained the beach where it is today. Dominic was very much a part of it when we were doing it, and also on the beach renourishment. And remember, this is 2 projects here. There's a beach renourishment and there's a dune renourishment. They're 2 different parts. Enough of me. Who would like, Dominic?
You know, in 2003, John Ferguson and I went to Jacksonville, and we sat down at a meeting that the Army Corps of Engineers hosted. There were 13 different entities sitting at the table. Each one of them had a different criteria of how you handle that marine resource that's out there, Matt. There was Florida EPA, National EPA, Florida Marine Fisheries, National Marine Fisheries, and a couple other agencies there that all looked at this differently. So from 2003 to 2018, it's 15 years later, and we're finally getting the project that we were talking about 15 years ago. There's been a lot of discussion on this. There's been multiple meetings over the years that have happened. You know, we've had some small renourishment projects that have come in that were basically there to shore up our dunes.
But the reality, and science will tell you, that when you look at what happens in a storm and you have seawalls, the property on both sides of the seawall is where the erosion hits. Well, when you look at beach renourishment projects, they've had sand pumped from Cape Canaveral, from Port Canaveral, all the way down to Sebastian Inlet. The only portions of the beach that weren't pumped was the mid-reach area. In a major storm, that area is extremely vulnerable because it's like having a seawall on both sides of you. For those of you who weren't living here back in 1984, we had a Thanksgiving Day storm that came through here. It took out every beach access in the city, and it took out every beach access from Cocoa Beach and Cape Canaveral down. Sebastian Inlet Beach Park was closed for 6 months. It took them that long to get all the lumber off of the edge of the north side of the jetty there, because that much lumber washed up. The renourishment projects that have been done from Port Canaveral down to Sebastian Inlet, all they've done is further complicate the fact that this 12-mile mid-reach area has become more vulnerable because of those renourishments. If we don't do the things that we need to do to shore up our beach, we're going to see major destruction going forward. This project, you know, Satellite Beach is a sustainable city. We've always been a sustainable city. This project, as far as I'm concerned, is a sustainability project for our city. We have millions of dollars in infrastructure that sit along our ocean, not only in city property, but there are millions of dollars worth of property that are sitting on the ocean that are people's homes and condominiums. And we have an obligation to make sure that our infrastructure and their properties are protected. This project is going to do that. The issues that you bring up on the sand, the federal government is looking at these things. They're monitoring what's going out there and what's not going out there. And we as a city need to be able to look at what they're coming up with and buy into the fact that the product that they're putting out there is the product that needs to be out there. We can all have our own little idiosyncrasies, and we can all have our own differing opinions about that, but that's what they're putting out there, that's what we're going to get, and that's what's going to protect our beach. So,
Please.
I look at this as, this is another sustainability project in our city, and this is what we've been doing for the years that I've lived here. And this is a project that a lot of thought, a lot of time, multiple meetings, hundreds of meetings throughout not only this area, but throughout the state have gone on this project and on this renourishment project, so.
Okay, thank you. Mark?
I mean, I think you guys pretty well covered it. The only thing I'd like to add that might shed a little bit of light on what you brought up, Mike, Matt, is again what Dominic said about the Army Corps of Engineers. When I first got on council, we had several storms, major storms. And as Dominic mentioned, there were some of the dune crossovers that you walked out on and you dropped 5 feet straight down. There was no way to get out there. And it was a big issue. And, the man sitting to your immediate right dealt with a lot of those things, trying to rebuild that process. But I remember a number of council meetings that had a lot more people than we have here tonight that were here saying, when are you people going to deal with this? We can't wait 5 to 10 years, as Mike McCurry had said, before we can get sand. We're concerned about this. We can't, to quote David Schechter, beach is our middle name. And we want to be able to have our beach. Right now, we can go down and stand there and look at it, but we can't go down on the water because none of it's left. It's all gone. So it was a big project for about 5 to 10 years with the council constantly hearing about, why aren't you doing something about this? And people were really bothered by it, and they're reasonably pleased with it now. But it goes away, and if we don't save it, it continues to go away. And having been down to Miami and Fort Lauderdale and seeing the water break against the walls by the condos, there is no beach. You have a place where you can sit and look at the water hit the walls on the condos. So I'm talking. So my bottom line is, I'm supporting what we're doing. I mean, I'm happy to listen to whatever agenda item you have, but I've been at this for 10 to 15 years. I'm done. We're where we need to be, and we're doing what we need to be doing. Army Corps of Engineers follows everything like Dominic said. They follow it all. They have been. We couldn't do anything because of the worm rock for years because they wanted to make sure we were doing it right. So I'm good with where we're at. I'll listen to what you have to say, but probably not going to, well, I can tell you right here now, not going to move off where I am. I'm there. So I just want to let you know that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Courtney, you have anything else to add to the citizens' comments? Okay. Matt, please.
Mayor, real quick, I did want to just address the idea of downzoning. Our city has been doing climate vulnerability analysis since 2009, and we're starting to plan for land development regulation changes. On your agenda, you'll have the stormwater master plan process that includes sea level rise projections in that, so we can start our infrastructure planning for that. But we have been with the climate ambassadors for 3 months now talking about these issues. And the beachfront, we've already got a strategy put together for the beachfront. Our consultant with LaRue Planning is drafting up those comprehensive plan amendments for planning and zoning and for you to consider in a future date. So the city has a team, Matt is actually on that team, where we are already talking about significant changes to beachfront and to the other areas of the city to try to avoid flood zones and erosion zones in the future with development. So that's already on the table. We're already doing it. So I want to make sure that, the public understands that that issue is not a new concept. It's not being done from now on. We have been doing it, and that we have a good team that's put together to look at those issues, and we are.
Thank you very much. Okay. At this time, I hear no more citizens' comments.
You only addressed
You closed it.
citizens in Satellite Beach. You didn't do outside Satellite
Okay, I'm sorry. Floor is open for anyone outside of the city limits of Satellite Beach who would like to speak. Okay, hearing none. Close it. Matt, please get with us. If you know where I'm at, you got my number. Call me anytime. Get us the list. We'll get you on with Nick. More than happy. I'll sit down with you anytime you want. Okay? Work it out. Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item 5, city council comments. Who would like to start, Mindy?
We are almost full swing into starting up the Mayor's Fitness Challenge. I've had a couple of meetings with United Way of Brevard, and we're working to try to create, like Courtney said earlier, a nice calendar full of free events that will help people get active. People are donating their time. I teach yoga. I'll be teaching a free yoga class. There's going to be lots of different options. We're going to have that 5K kickoff. And the concept is just what I've been proposing since I ran for council is, like, we want to live in a sustainable city, but part of that is getting people out and getting them moving and getting them active, where they're biking and they're walking to their destinations instead of getting in a car and driving. And part of that initiative is getting people healthy enough to do that and providing them the spaces and the sidewalks and stuff to get there. So it's really important that if you guys are active, please sign up. Even if you live in the outside of city limits, but still call yourself Satellite Beach, you can assign yourself to Satellite Beach. I am a competitive person by nature, so I would really like to see us beat Cape Canaveral, who really kicked our butts last year. And other than that, that's pretty much kind of what I have to update.
Thank you. Don?
Not sure what night it was, but we went to the retirement of one of our firefighters, I think it was last week. Barry Pettingill retired. He was with the city for 10 years. The fire department had a great party for him, and the food was great. And Kobe attended. And Monday night I attended the Space Coast League of Cities meeting. That's all I have.
Thank you.
I have nothing.
Did the Community for a Lifetime presentation in the Atlantic on Saturday morning. Good attendance. Not sure where all of this is going to go. Kind of stirred up a little bit of interest in particular areas. And somebody from the Atlantic is thinking about approaching their council about a walking club among the elderly residents within the community, which I thought was kind of neat. You never know how this stuff is going to go. And then I had a man from Palm Bay come up to me and ask me some advice on how to approach his Palm Bay City Council about the whole process. So I'm doing the presentations. I don't know where it's going to go, but we're trying to get this whole process rejuvenated as we've had in the past, but we'll see where it goes. But that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for your work. Couple of things. I congratulate Councilman Montanaro, became the president of the Space Coast League of Cities. That's Monday. Congratulations. I also went by and spent hours with our retiring fire person, and what a great guy. Did a lot of good things for our city, and we're going to miss him. That's all I have. Any other council comments?
Just so you know, you're speaking at the May meeting.
May?
May.
It changed?
Yeah, it changed.
Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you. Council, I would like to move an agenda item, our agenda item 8, which is the one on vacating an easement. I know the people are here in the audience probably don't want to stay till 10 o'clock, so if you don't mind, I'd like to move number 8 up.
Please.
Thank you. This agenda item 8, discuss, take action on ordinance number 1151. Jim?
Ordinance number 1151, an ordinance of the City of Satellite Beach, Brevard County, Florida, vacating and abandoning the north 5 feet of the south 10 feet of the public utility easement running parallel to the south property line of Lot 11, Block C, Amherst Park Gardens, Section 5, Unit 2, as recorded in Plat Book 25, page 117, Public Records of Brevard County, Florida, 529 West Amherst Circle, as described herein, providing for severability, conflicts, recording, and an effective date. It's the second reading of ordinance number 1151.
Thank you. Have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Breimer, second by Vice Mayor Montanaro. This is a second reading. Any comments from council before I open up for public comments? Hearing none at this time, floor is open for public comments on agenda item 8. Hearing none, back to council. Any further? Grace?
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gibson?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Catino?
Yes, motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 7. Discuss, take action on ordinance 1150. It is also a second reading. Jim?
Ordinance number 1150, an ordinance of the City of Satellite Beach, Brevard County, Florida, amending Section 30-510C7, Satellite Beach City Code, to allow accessory structures to be secured/tied down by any means authorized by Florida Building Code, if such means are certified by an engineer or architect licensed by the state of Florida to meet all requirements of the Florida Building Code, providing severability, providing effective date. So second reading of ordinance number 1150.
Motion to, got it, go ahead, Don.
Motion to adopt ordinance number 1150 on second reading.
Second.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Montanaro, second by Councilman Breimer. Discussion from council. Hearing none, open up public comment for agenda item 7. Please come up, sir.
Hello, Charlie Nixon, 125 Magellan. I just have a question. Is there some printed material, whatever, some resource to say what it is that's certified by an engineer and architect licensed state of Florida to meet all the requirements of the Florida Building Code? I'm not clear on it. My concern is I'm looking at, putting a shed on my property, and what does that mean? I know this is second reading, so I'm behind the time.
John, would you like to?
One of the requirements for approving a shed on a property is that they have to provide us engineering. That engineering is generated by the manufacturer. It's also called a product approval. That product approval will demonstrate several ways that you can install a shed, and it will basically tell you what the design pressures and the wind speed of that shed will be if you install it according to those methods. And those prescriptive methods, there's usually 2 or 3 different versions. One is, of course, attachment to a slab. Another one is the shed comes on skids, and so there's a strapping method with augers. So there's several alternative methods. The building code allows for these alternative methods. It doesn't go into detail. That's for the engineer to do. They basically give parameters and say, it shall resist, in our area, 130 mile wind speed and such as that. That's what we look for as a plan reviewers, to make sure that it does meet those requirements.
Okay.
So the product approval, basically, so if you wanted to go buy a shed,
Right.
maybe from Lowe's or wherever you buy it from,
Right.
You want to ask for the product approval. And you want to look in there for where it says that it's rated for whatever wind speed is rated for you. Don't make the assumption that if you buy it here, then you can use it here.
Right.
The Lowe's and the Home Depots of the world.
Right.
They
Okay.
stockpile material for all over the country, and a window you buy here may not be able to be used here. Same thing with a shed.
Exactly. Okay. All right.
But we're there to check to make sure. So what I would suggest is, if you find one you like, get a copy of the product approved, go to the millworks desk, and bring that in to us. Let us take a quick look at it, and we can advise you one way or another.
Great. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would also encourage you to let him know where you're talking about putting it in your yard too, because they can only go in certain places.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much. Public comment still open on this agenda item. Hearing no further public comment, council comments? Hearing none, Grace?
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gibson?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes, motion passes. Thank you, staff. John, thank you for answering the question. Moving on to agenda item 8. We did 8, 9, excuse me, that's right. Apologize. Moving on, agenda item 9, discuss take action on ordinance 1152. It is also a second reading. Jim?
Ordinance number 1152, an ordinance of the City of Satellite Beach, Brevard County, Florida, amending the city board's handbook created by ordinance number 1101, as amended by ordinance numbers 1137 and ordinance number 1138, to amend the number of members of the Sustainability Board to include a non-voting member to be appointed by Brevard County, and to provide non-voting members of the Sustainability Board not to be considered for purposes of establishing quorum, providing severability, and providing an effective date. It's the second reading of ordinance number 1152.
Motion to approve 1152 on second reading.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Breimer, second by Councilwoman Gibson. Further discussion from council? It is a second reading. At this time, open up public comment on agenda item 9.
What will be the purpose of the county attache to the Sustainability Board?
We have a whole section between the city and Pineda that includes a lot of county area. So for us, we feel that it's, from a regional perspective, better to coordinate with the county than ignore that area. So we're wanting to appoint a person from that area.
And as a non-voting member,
That's correct.
they would simply be there probably to observe and contribute
And
from a
contribute,
policy
right,
perspective.
and then bring that back to the county commissioner.
Thank you.
Any further public comment? Floor is open. Hearing none, back to council. Any further? Grace?
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gibson?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes, motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 10, discuss take action on ordinance 1153. It is a first reading. Jim?
Ordinance number 1153, an ordinance of the City of Satellite Beach, Brevard County, Florida, repealing section 14-3 sub B sub 7 regarding disposal of dead backyard chickens, renumbering subsequent subsections, providing severability, providing an effective date. It's the first reading of ordinance number 1153.
I'd like to make a motion to approve, please, ordinance number 1153 on the first reading.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Gibson. I have a second by Councilman Osmer. Discussion from...
This was just simply modifications to what we had from the last time. Is that correct?
Some word
Some word changes. You got it. Okay.
Wordsmith and I.
Okay.
Okay, any
Yep.
further?
Nope.
At this time, open up agenda item 10 for public comment. The floor is open. Okay. Bring it back to council. Any further council? Chris?
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gibson?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you, Steph. Moving on to agenda item 11, discuss, take action on Live-in Shoreline Homeowners Incentive Pilot Program.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
So as part of the previously agreed upon grant with FIT, the city had agreed to $14,000 in-kind for a project that FIT is doing on Redwood Canal, as we're all familiar with the study that Dr. Treppers is doing. So as part of that, he agreed that this project could be used as the match. So for 11,000 of that 14, what we're going to do is we're going to open up to homeowners a program where they can partake in a way to help the lagoon by vegetating their backyards. This is for residents that live along canal streets, not connected directly with the project that Dr. Treppers is doing, but that live along the canal. The idea being that they vegetate a swale in their backyard and enhance it with native plants, as well as possible plant mangroves, or tiny grasses and things of that nature. We can reduce stormwater impacts before they enter the lagoon. So what we would like to do is offer $500 of match against the residents' $500, so that then they can come to us and get approved to do this type of vegetative replanting in their backyard. This will coincide with the swale project that we have along the Soto and the Green Achievement Targets as part of the Sustainability Action Plan. So those residents would then basically get the $500 matched. It's a pretty simple project. The rest of the money would go to creating video and informational pamphlets about both the Redwood Canal project and this project and how to help the lagoon and things of that nature with stormwater runoff being an issue and why that project and this project exist. If successful, this project would be continued in the future to be made available to future residents through grant opportunities with the NEP. Any other additional funds not included in the 11,000, 3,000 would be obtained through volunteer in-kind work and outreach and things of that nature.
So as you recall, the Redwood Canal project with the aeration company is currently ongoing. That's a test project that Dr. Treffery received a grant to analyze as a third party. So his team is doing that right now. As part of that project, the city agreed to a $14,000 match for education, videos, things like of that nature. Clearly, we don't need $14,000 for that, so Nicholas came up with this idea for, I guess, internally we're calling it a plant grant, and that will satisfy this match, which is good, because it, basically solves two problems. The funds will be coming out of the recycling trust fund, so that fits in with the sustainability goal for that fund. The $10,000 homeowner incentive program will occur on canals that are not involved with Dr. Treffery's project, so they do not interfere with his results. So that is that's the beginning of what we're hoping to expand throughout the city, is getting residents to remove the St. Augustine and replace it with native landscaping that doesn't require irrigation or fertilization.
Thank you. Nick, question.
Sure.
Is there going to be a list of approved plants?
Yes.
And then will each of these, call them mini grants for no more than the conversation, are they going to have to come to you and you approve the project?
Yes.
Okay. Is that how we're going to substantiate it, by them showing you a plan? Here it is. You give them suggestions. Here's the plants that we will allow. And then are you going to inspect it when it's done?
Absolutely. Before, during, and after.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
The only thing, I think it's a great idea. The only thing I would ask, Nick, is what is the beginning/end of this? I mean, there's no timeline set out on.
We have 20 homes as part of this funding opportunity. Once we reach the 20, will be completed.
Well, is there a time when these 20 homes have to act on this by whatever?
First come, first served.
No, first come, first served. We would like everyone to be involved.
Okay. I mean, I guess, is there a time where you're going to have to cut it off and say, okay, if you're going to participate by this date, is my question.
I can check with the NEP if they have any requirements, but as far as I've had my conversations with Frank Sakuma at NEP, nothing along those lines. As long as the project is in place and existing, it should satisfy requirements from all parties.
Okay. That's all I have.
Nick, it's been a while since I've been involved with mangroves, but I know there's 3 different varieties, the white, the black, and the red. One of them is more intrusive than the other 2. The last thing we would want to see is whichever that one is being planted, because they will choke off a canal.
Well, let me address that. So as part of the project, we want to educate.
Exactly.
Education is key.
Right.
So the red, white, and black are the natives. I think the red is typically the one you're thinking of as far as its prolific nature to grow towards the water.
Yep.
So in that sense, the DEP has very strict, very easy to understand rules regarding trimming and home exemptions for trimming. So as long as we have residents planting mangroves in specific areas, in specific sizes, under 150-foot length, under 50-foot width, and under a 6-foot ceiling, they can keep it at that 6-foot ceiling. So if we're just doing 10 feet wide by 5 feet deep and 6 feet tall, we can keep that trimmed in perpetuity.
Well, they have a tendency to grow out, too.
You're allowed to keep trimming, as long as you keep it within that zone.
That zone.
So we educate,
Okay.
and then if we need to, we can refer the residents, if they can't do the trimming themselves, to, people that do
Hire
that type of thing.
professionals.
To hire professional mangrove trimmers. I can think of 3 in the area.
Okay. I like the education part of it.
Absolutely.
Because that's what we do.
Yeah.
Good.
Great, thank you.
Just a quick question. Have you spoke with any of the residents? Have any of them expressed any interest in getting this done?
3 interested parties
There's one
already.
here.
One sitting in the audience.
Thank you.
Okay. Further comments? Okay. At this time, open up agenda item 11 for public comment. Floor is open. Albert, please.
Hello. I'm Al Vasquez, 665 Seville Court, and I'm very enthusiastic about this. I think that for decades, the city has led the way in a number of these environmental initiatives that are benefiting not just the city but the entire county. Last year, I had the privilege to be involved with a referendum that we passed to tax ourselves to alleviate some of the problems in the Indian River Lagoon. And I was very involved with the economics of that. The most cost-effective way to reduce these problems is to stop using lawn fertilizers. That was by far the highest return on investment. The second one was living shorelines. So, this is a very, very cost-effective way to mitigate some of the issues that we have with all of us living in this beautiful waterfront environment with the Indian River Lagoon. And I certainly commend the city for its initiative, and I hope to be one of the first ones. I met with the city building official. I'm actually interested in removing my seawall and replacing it with a living shoreline, which is probably going to create a fuss because it hasn't been done in our area, but a lot of the newer developments, Lansing Island and so forth, are already in that mode. I'd like to see some of the established developments start to correct our sins of the past and move into more of a living shoreline scenario to benefit the lagoon, because it is very cost effective. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it very much. Public comment portion still open? Hearing no further public comment, bring it back to council. Council?
Make a motion to authorize the expenditure of $11,000 from the Recycling Trust Fund for the Living Shores Homeowners Incentive Pilot Program.
Second.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Montanaro, second by Councilman Breimer. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Grace?
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gibson?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Nick, thanks very much.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Nick.
Moving on to agenda item 12, discuss, take action on proposal to update the stormwater master plan. Alan?
Good evening. Before you this evening is a request to authorize retroactively the staff to enter into an agreement to update our stormwater master plan. Our master plan was, the original master plan was done in 2001, prior to the new requirements that the state has levied upon us, which change almost annually to meet the stormwater standards, TMDL, DMAP requirements, you name it, it's there. So we've also run into issues with an aging infrastructure, pipes that are 50 years old that cannot handle the volume of water that is now being passed through them. This year was a real big tell. We had some major storms that are now pretty much commonplace. The intensity and the frequency of these storms is very alarming because, back in the day, we used to be able to set our watch by the 4 o'clock thunderstorm coming through, but it was absolutely nothing compared to the storms that we're seeing now that, a week's worth of those storms couldn't challenge. So we need to meet some of the demands that are put upon us, and the only way to do that is to look at everything that we have and come up with a plan to attack those issues. The capacity issues, the age issues, and we have a quality master plan, but in order to implement that quality master plan, we need to update what's there, what's out there. So.
Thank you. I know you and I have talked about it a lot. I know the city manager knows I have talked about it to her a lot. So in this stormwater master plan, we're going to know about retrofitting what we have, correct? Are we going to have a dollar figure placed on what it's going to take to bring, well, I don't know if we ever get there because you and I have talked about this, to bring the system up to, we'll use the term standards, for the future. I mean, we know we still have corrugated pipe in places and so forth. We did Jackson, and all of a sudden it worked great for a few years, and then here we are. So, is this plan going to take that into consideration?
So what we asked Quentin Hampton to put together was a scope that included an R&R replacement plan, basically, for March, the end of March, because we know that'll affect stormwater fees. And the reason why we know that is because our system, as currently built, is not able to handle the flooding that we currently experience. So it would be disingenuous for me to say that we'll ever have the system up to standard, because the standard's changing every year. That's the problem, even though we included sea level rise projections in here, we included storm modeling that's based on climate change in here, which actually created a problem for our engineer. He had to redo a lot of the way they think. That will be included, but we did a climate change study in 2009, and it got infinitely worse when we did that study again in 2014. So every year, those rates of flooding change and get worse. So I don't think we'll ever be there, because we'll always have to make those improvements to meet new conditions.
Right. I just want to make sure, I know I like this.
Yeah.
We've talked about it a lot. This is something that I can tell you I've lived here a long time. 50 years ago, they talked about the exact same thing. We have a sand soil, and what is that expectation? but I know some of the roads today definitely didn't flood the way they do now, 30 years ago. And, you know, we need to, I think this is a major part of.
Even the
figuring
location of our
sustainability.
outfalls, the location of our outfalls may have to change over time, because when the river gets too high and it backs up the outfall, so the river starts, you know, backing into the roads, that has happened to Jackson, to that intersection. So when you see that massive flooding there, that is what's happening. And so we, you know, those are the things that they need to look at. And we are fortunate, because we did the project with Stetson, that a lot of that GIS has been done. But we still have to do a lot of we mapped critical infrastructure, not every infrastructure, and that's what we have to do with this study.
I know for a fact that the Stetson one worked.
Yeah.
Because I was standing there when it was going on during the hurricane, right out here at this stoplight at 2 o'clock in the morning. It was bone dry, right, Al? Bone dry. As soon as the wind shifted, the water was almost in the air conditioner's front door within 15 minutes. Standing water. So we have that issue. Anybody else other comment? Okay. At this time, open up for public comment on agenda item 12. Hear none, back to council. Motion.
This is once again, another example of sustainability. I mean, this is important stuff that we need to be looking at and doing, so I'll make a motion to retroactively authorize staff to enter an agreement with Quinton L. Hampton and Associates to update the city stormwater master plan at a cost of $44,200 to be paid from the stormwater utility fund.
Second.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Montanaro, second by Councilman Osmer.
Yes.
So further comments from council?
I just wanted to briefly explain the retroactively. We had always known that we were going to do the plan. We just didn't line item budget that. So we went ahead and started agreements, and then we realized that we didn't line item budget that. So even though you knew that that was in the stormwater plan, master plan for this year, we didn't line item budget like we have to do by statute. So that's why we had to do this.
Great, thank you very much. Councilman? Any further? Grace?
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gibson?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Patino?
Yes, motion passes. Alan, thank you very much. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 13, discuss, take action on salary study to be performed by Cody and Associates.
We are asking for you to waive the bid process and authorize the expenditure of $15,300 for the citywide salary study, and to authorize me to execute an agreement with Cody and Associates. And the reason why we're asking you to do that is we are having a very difficult time retaining public works employees. We can't even hire new ones. He's got, how many openings right now?
I'm down 2 right
Down 2 right now. And we had hired one, and he was here for a week, found a higher salary, and walked out the door. So we need to address public works, and we tried to do that with a study only focusing on public works, and quickly realized that would affect the rest of the city. We did, however, we were very fortunate in that Cody and Associates is doing several salary studies throughout Brevard for a couple cities and the county, which means we got a very good price, because they're collecting basically the same information for all of us, just our benefits are a lot different, but the salaries are very similar in nature. So we were able to get a pretty good price for that. That's why we're asking you to waive the bid requirements.
How long has it been since we really did this? I remember we did it way back.
Did it in 2013.
2013?
Yeah.
I thought it was further back than that. Okay.
Well, we did it in 2013, but it was very, very, it was a quick study, so we had to continually go back and add more things to it, because if you don't do the whole thing, it just, you run into problems. Like, well, this salary is so much higher, and then you look at their benefits, and they don't have better benefits, and so a lot of cities will backfill a low salary with better benefits, because you can pay that later. So that's important that we keep the benefit section in there, which we did not do in the first study, and we ended up having to go back and redo that.
So this will include police and fire too?
Yes.
Okay.
We've done studies about every 8-10 years, I think, if we go back. And,
The first one we did was had with the fire department, was losing EMS people left and right. So
Right.
I remember that.
And we're down a couple even in that department now. Matter of fact, I spoke to a young man, great young man, simply because of that, you
The
know?
biggest problem that we're having is the departments that compete with the private sector at this point. And that's, we don't, luckily we have building people that are stagnant right now, but if we lose one, it was very difficult for us to hire Carl. It took a long time for him to find him. So those departments, Public Works and Building, you can walk out and get a private sector position, whereas police and fire, you really can't. So you have to just make sure that they're in line with other areas. But in Building and Public Works, I asked Cody and Associates to compare them to the private sector as well, because that's where we're losing people to.
Thank
I'll
you.
make a motion to waive the bid process to authorize expenditure of $15,300 for a citywide salary survey and to authorize the city manager to execute the agreement with Cody and Associates.
Second?
I have a motion by Councilman Breimer, second by Councilwoman Gibson. At this time, open up agenda item 13 for public comment. The floor is open. Hearing none, back to council. Any further, council?
I just wanted to make one statement. Like with the Public Works employees, we rely so much on them, probably a little more than other cities do. We've had them do a lot of the debris cleanup, and we're asking them to perform on a different level than other cities. And right now, when you look at the salaries that they're getting paid, and I've seen them, and I was a little disappointed in what I saw. And I know one of the individuals that left, and I know he expressed to me even when I was campaigning and talking to people, that he was a pretty good asset to our city, was that it wasn't a livable wage, and I hate to use that word, but it really wasn't for the level of work that they were providing. So I think that it's very important that we stay competitive so that we can keep, our streets look good, our parks look good. When we need to have sewer stuff done, they can go into the road and do what they do.
And just so, when you have a Public Works salary, starting salary, on top of that starting salary, which is very low, if they have family health coverage, $700 comes out of their paycheck every month, and in addition to 5% into their 401A. So when you get young people, which is usually the ones that are willing to do these jobs, they don't care about benefits because they're young. They don't care about health care. But what they do care about is the money in their pocket, and so we're having a very hard time finding them and retaining them, and that's the problem.
Thank you. Any further comment?
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gibson?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Catino?
Yes, motion passes. Thank you, Steph. Moving on to agenda item 14, discuss, take action on amendment to the agreement with the Florida Resilient Energy District, as Fred, to allow the city of Satellite Beach to sequester party and hold a board seat.
As you recall, we have several interlocal agreements with PACE organizations to implement the PACE program as a third party. So basically, we have handed off our statutory right to provide this program off to a third party to manage that. In a lot of these districts, they allow a municipal partner to sit on the board. This particular group, and for some reason in their interlocal, did not have that section in there to allow for a board seat for a municipal partner. We would like to have a seat on the board. I think it would give us a good insight on how these programs really work from the financial side and give us an opportunity to be involved with that. So Suzanne Sherman would like to be appointed to the board, and to do that, we have to make this adjustment.
Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the amendment to a limited purpose party membership agreement with the Florida Resilient Energy District. Fred.
Thank you. I have a motion by Vice Mayor Montanaro, second by Councilman Osmer. Further discussion from council. Hearing none, open up for public comment on agenda item 14. Hearing none, back to council. Any further? Grace?
Councilman Breimer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gibson?
Yes.
Councilman Osmer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Montanaro?
Yes.
Mayor Catino?
Yes, motion passes. Moving on to agenda item 15, which is the proposed agenda for next month. Please take a look at it, and if you need anything to
Just got one thing.
Sure.
And Courtney, if you could, even if it's just in your city manager report, that's fine. Just I get a lot of questions about what's going on north of the water tower with all the updates and all that sort of thing. and I kind of fumble through it sometimes. If you could kind of just tell us about where everything is staged out at, or what, and it doesn't have to be an agenda item. If you want to just do a report, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, we can have John do kind of an overall what's coming
Yeah.
report. Would that be
Yeah, and
helpful? I think he
nothing-
gave you a list of things, but I think a good explanation of some of those things would be
That'd be
good.
very
Yeah.
helpful.
Okay.
And maybe one other update, and I don't want to get this started. A1A, it's kind of like, all of a sudden we have them, and then they go, and we don't
We
see.
expressed significant dislike for their project and construction activities at the meeting today. Public Works was able to do that. So we conveyed that
Great.
message loud and clear. It's been pretty bad.
Okay.
It's
Thank
not just here.
I know.
I mean, you can go down to where Ichabod's is down there in
Yeah,
across
same
from
stuff.
Paradise Park. The road's all done, but they haven't cut in the roads that come into it. It's like they forgot about it. or
They did
something.
great from
The
the
signals
standpoint,
are
they were
still
never in
not
the way
working.
or anything, but they were paving, all of a sudden they left,
Yeah.
and they're back.
It's really bad, and they need to repave and mark the medians. That a lot of people don't understand what the purpose of them are until they get the crosswalk signage and the paint on the ground. So it's been very frustrating, and we did convey that today. We also asked the very important question of who paid for the other mast arms throughout the county and in the Atlantic and Indian Harbor. I'm just curious, since we paid for ours. But we'll see.
Thank you. I know you're a fighter on that. Okay, that's our agenda item. If you have anything added or something, please see our city manager. Is there any
That's
other
what you wanted.
business before council? Hearing none, thank you, everybody. Meeting's adjourned.